Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Michael. Welcome to spring. Welcome to the playoff season for the Rangers. I want to welcome you to the MNP Marketing Network Breakfast, not marketing, networking breakfast of building the region in sport. We have some fantastic panelists today. I've already warned them that I've changed the script. I'm going to ask them some hard questions, and I hope that you'll all be behind me and be thinking up some questions as they're talking. It's a great opportunity to have the three of them on the hot seats today. So as Mike mentioned, one of the things that Waterloo Regional Tourism does, and we call ourselves Explore Waterloo Region because Waterloo Region Tourism Marketing Corporation is just way too long to have to say. We're working hard to bring visitors to Waterloo Region for meetings, for conferences, for attractions, for festivals, and for sport. And sport is a really important way to attract business to Waterloo Region for our restaurants, for our hotels, and for all of our other partners. I want to introduce you to Sherry Doiron today. Sherry, please stand up. Get her on the hot seat to ask her some hard questions, but Sherry is the Executive Director of the Sport Hosting Office, and the advisory committee is sitting surrounding her at the table today. So we're working hard to try and bring more sport, develop more sport for Waterloo Region. So thank you guys all for being here. So now I'll go back to the script. There are numerous facilities and opportunities to catch one of our local sport teams in the region, as you all know. And it's pretty exciting to have the Titans, the Panthers, and the Rangers here today. So I want to introduce you to your panel today. Bill Pay is an active community volunteer. Most of you probably know him already. He's currently serving as president of the Kitchener Panthers Baseball and the Kitchener Sport Association, who just celebrated their 100th year. I first read that wrong. I thought it was your 100th year. I'm getting old too, and I need to they celebrated the 100th year last year in 2018. That's the Panthers. He's a longtime volunteer and a member of the chamber. So welcome, Bill. Steve Biankowski has been the COO and governor of the Kitchener Rangers since 2002. They're members of the Midwest Division of the Western Conference of the Ontario Hockey League and one of 6 teams in the Canadian Hockey League that is publicly owned. The franchise came to Waterloo in 1963, so not quite 100 years for Steve. And Leon Martin is the owner of the KW Titans, who are in their 3rd season in the National Basketball League in Canada. After retiring as a business owner, he's now a minority owner with Ball Construction. This keeps him busy in the winter, and in the summer, he works on his farm cash cropping. Now, Leon, cannabis cash cropping?
Yeah, not yet.
So, I'd like to welcome the panelists to the stage. So we have set a couple of questions to start with, and then we're going to open the floor. It doesn't take long. We're going to open the floor to questions from you. So the first question is to Leon. Prepare yourself, Leon. Being a new franchise in the region, tell us a little bit more about the team, and some of the ways you've already proven to be successful in your first 2 seasons.
It's been a journey on our first season, or our 3rd season. The first year was a challenge. It was not Ball Construction or myself that started basketball here. It was a group of volunteers that brought basketball to the region. John Thompson, Bill Pegg, Ken Brooks. There's a group of people, Leo Toby, of course, had a vision to bring basketball to the community. And they're the ones that started it off. And somehow they found people like myself involved that wanted to invest in basketball. And so that's how it all started. It was a difficult start at first. It was 6 months to get the team going. We should have maybe waited a year, but we didn't. So we had to come up with a name, logo. Venue was, we looked for venue. The Odd is a great spot. And it was a challenge to start that all off, but it was, first year was, we pulled it off, I think, and we had a good year the first year. We made the playoffs in our first season, and it was successful. We lost in the first round, but basketball came alive in Kitchener, Waterloo, so it was a good time.
It's great to have you here. I think one of the things that's so important about having sports teams like these three in the region is that it helps make Waterloo Region a great place to live. And if we live in a great place, we've got a much better chance of attracting visitors and businesses to come and visit and set up shop here. Steve, next question for you. Your team has been in town since 1963 with a large fan following. Can you provide us with some insight on the story on the team's success?
All 50 years of it. For myself, I probably have a unique view of it. I came here as a 17-year-old, so that now makes me involved with the Rangers for almost 40 years. So I sort of remember what it was like in 1979. But I think really where we changed course, if I go back to 1996, and actually one of my colleagues, Kevin's here tonight, you may remember this meeting. That was sort of a change in the road for the organization. It had some financial troubles leading up to that, and I think we finally realized we're not in the necessarily the hockey business, we're in the entertainment business. And what I mean by that is, sure, we want to win, contrary to some accusations sometimes. But in order to be in the entertainment business, fans have to be entertained when they come to the game. So obviously if they enjoy the game, that's entertaining them. There's a huge social aspect to our games. There's many people who come to those games that say hi to me, and I'll know they have a trailer in Savo Beach, this, that. I couldn't tell you where they lived in our community, and I won't see them again until next winter, right? But it's a gathering place. And then the environment that we provide. So it was those three things, I think, that led to where we are. People think that our building's always been full. If we go back to 96, our average attendance was 3,300. So we're now closer to 7,000. Okay, I call it a recentness factor. People only remember what's happened recently, and so that's thing. And then secondly, you had asked a little bit for like the Titans specifically, and I've talked to them on many occasions, and we don't tell them how to run their business, but the analogy we used when we tried to build our fan base was like going up a set of stairs. Okay, so we would increase from 3,800 to 4,000 to 42 to 48 to whatever. It didn't go from 3,300 to 7,000. And the key was, for us, is to provide an environment and an experience that the 3,800 people who came, most of those came back, and then we got 300 more, and then 300 more. And then that led to our expansion in 2012, where we added seats, and now we have the challenge to try to keep those seats.
Thanks, Steve. And I think that we can, Steve and I were talking earlier, I think that we can build the number of visitors coming to the region, not just to get people to come to Panthers or Titans or Rangers games when they're playing here, but because we've got recognition of Waterloo Region, the name Kitchener, in the areas where there are other teams that play in the same league, we're thinking that we can capitalize on that from a marketing perspective as well. So we're working on that from a tourism side too. Bill, we're not going to get off on this one. So the Panthers just celebrated 100 years. Holy mackerel. Congratulations. What's the secret to success?
Just to set the record straight, in spite of my age, Minto was actually my godmother. So anyway, you know, like Steve said, we get the last word.
I'm not sure that you're going to get that.
So what has worked? Well, luck. We just completed a book last year. It was edited by John Thompson, a tremendous book about the league and about each team. And over the years, we've had what's led to our success? Well, dedicated volunteers, local business people who had a passion for it, and of course our fans. And baseball over that 100 years has ebbed and flowed. The halcyon days of the 50s have been gone for a while, when we used to get 4,000 or 5,000 people at Victoria Park to watch games. So in recent years though, after our 90th, it's those factors. We have an excellent board. We are also a not-for-profit, and we have a terrific board of directors. And through our board and through our connections in the community, we have been able to sustain a fair amount of success incrementally, as Steve pointed out, over the last decade and a half. So, and we keep incrementally trying to improve each year.
Slow, steady growth, that's the word it's at. So aside from some of the challenges that all of you face that you've talked about already, what are some of the things that the community can do to support you aside from buying tickets? Leon, do you want to go first?
Yes.
More tickets.
Tickets is definitely coming out and supporting any of the teams is a big part, because it takes money to run any of these teams. We also need support we also want minor basketball involved in this, and how can we find more facilities to practice at? That's one of the challenges we have, and how, as a community, can we come up with more facilities for basketball, or any court sports, actually. That's where we need a lot of help, and just spreading the word that the Titans exist. That's one of our biggest challenges. A lot of people have never heard there's professional basketball in the region. Or they've said, yeah, I've heard about it, haven't been there. But it is good basketball, it's good value for your money. Go to the Raptors game for one night and see how that turned out. It's great entertainment, nothing against the Raptors, great entertainment, I love the Raptors. But you can have all this exciting events in the city. Just people just have to know about it and know how good it really is. And reach out, give it a shot for any of the sports.
We'll tell you about it. Yeah.
You know, you're absolutely, the Raptors are very entertaining, and we have some friends that have season tickets. So I think they had to sell their firstborn to get those tickets. So we went to a game with them in Toronto a couple of weeks ago, and a glass of wine was $35. Oh. So there was a couple sitting in front of us, and they had like on the court seats, and they had a child with them, 2 children with them. And my friend said, well, I don't know why they wouldn't have gotten a babysitter. And so after paying for those seats, they couldn't afford a babysitter. They put the Rangers teams, and it's nothing but families. It's fantastic. So, Steve, you want to take a shot at the challenges and what the community can do to support the Rangers?
Well, I think, like Leon said, the reality is most Canadian sports, and ours included, it's ticket driven, right? That's what pays the bills. In our case, I think it's also been the sponsorship and what I would call more partnerships. At one time, we were ticket driven entirely, and then we reached a point where actually sponsorship and partnerships were higher revenues than our tickets. And then we went and did an expansion, so that sort of reversed itself. We have more tickets again. But I think it's that, in our case, I think we have a perception that you can never get Ranger tickets. It's an untrue perception. We've been trying for 5 years to get the message out that we actually leave 500 tickets available every game so that everyone has the opportunity to come to our games. I seen a franchise a number of years ago who sold, I think it was 90% of their tickets in season tickets, and you had to buy a 5-year season ticket. And then what happened there is, I believe, is they lost a generation of fans, okay, for young people to come. So in our case, it's, you know, the business community continued to support us with our brand and their brand together and what we can do in the community together. And then the message of, like Leon says, it's just tickets. That's the bottom line in order to survive for any sports franchise.
I think a big part of having these teams in the community is also that the players are living in the community. And for all of you guys, the players are usually young, coming from other parts of the country or even the U.S. Does that play a part in helping to build the team, having people watching certain players on the teams?
Yeah, I give you an example. We had our awards reception the other night, and a parent came up to me, and for the most part, I stay away from those kind of people. And anyone who has a son or daughter in minor hockey probably understands that. But what the person said to me really hit home, and they had been traded to our organization and only been here a few months. And it's not a star player, but a person who has an important role on our team. But what the parents' message was, really excited about the way the player was treated by the team and this and that and facilities and da-da-da, and that's great. But his other comment was how well he was treated being the parent at the rink by fans around him. okay, and that's what stood out. So that's really the community of, instead of sitting in front of the guy or behind the guy and calling his son a bum all night, sort of thing. It was the opposite. He was embraced about, telling him things about the community, how to get around the ring, all those things shows you the importance of our whole environment in trying to attract young players and make them feel comfortable.
It's like having a university student here, having a kid playing sport here.
Yeah, well, it's more like having 20 high school students in your house. Somebody's always gone off track. Maybe.
It's better than having 33,000 on Ezra Street. Bill? What about the Panthers?
So with us, ticket sales do mean something, but we obviously don't have a big enough venue for that to be our main source of revenue. And so even if it was full every night, which would be tremendous, don't get me wrong, and our ticket prices are a little more moderate simply because of the nature of our product and that it's outside. Keep in mind, we have another partner in our team, and his name is called Weatherman. So that's always a challenge. So our sponsorship, which has gone up, I don't know, Bill's sitting over there, Bill Green, it's probably gone up 10-fold, 10 or 12-fold anyway in the last decade. So without that, and without us having a good board of directors, that wouldn't have happened. So with us, it's a little different than the fellows beside me because sponsorship is the main part. And so we want to encourage to our sponsors, when we go out to them, we say, would you like to sponsor the Panthers? Listen, we're not the greatest advertising opportunity that came along. And it's very hard for anybody in the room who's in marketing and advertising. It's pretty hard, I believe, to hang a dollar figure on the value that sponsor is going to get. And so we don't even try. But what we do try and do is portray to the sponsor and sell the sponsor on the fact that we're a good business partner. And that when you're partnering with us and you're sharing your brand with us, you're telling the community at large that you support a 100-year-old community institution. And that's our shtick. And believe it or not, it's been working. We do, and we only target local businesses, so we don't go after the big national companies or franchises or anything like that. We target local people who depend on doing business locally. And then we do everything in our power to enhance that relationship and let them know that we're trying our best to let everyone know that they support the Kitchener Panthers.
That's great, it's an institution. So each of your franchises have been heavily involved in community, in not-for-profits, charities, helping them build the region through sport, is the way it's phrased in the script. And Steve and I were talking a little bit earlier about people that had moved to the region and started businesses in the region, moved to the regions to play for the Rangers, and ended up staying here and creating a life and a business here. And I think that's a really important part of building the region through sport. Can you think of any other ways that your teams have an effect on the community, like Leon? You're kind of new, but you're still.
Yes, all our players do go do school visits, meet with the kids on the way, but we're involved in minor basketball probably in the biggest way because they are our future, the kids. We have to get the kids to love basketball or any sport. I'd rather have sports people than just basketball people, but we need the kids to love the basketball game, and they are our future to make it viable later on. But the minor basketball is so good in this community. We've got a lot of great athletes coming up through the system. So minor basketball we want to partner with them to hopefully someday have our own facility or 4 or 5 courts. Minor basketball can play, they bring tournaments in, which is great for the community. All these hotels will fill up, restaurants. It's good for the community and good for the kids, but we'd also like to have our own facility where we can practice and play in the same facility.
Building the region through sport, also through tourism. So, when we go for London is big competition for us too, from all aspects. But when they're hosting things like Memorial Cup, World Figure Skating, and all sorts of other sporting events, it kind of makes us sit up and take notice. So we're hoping you're going a long way in the playoffs, Steve. And that after Halifax, we can hope to bring the Memorial Cup and other big events back. But not only big events, because a lot of the smaller sporting tournaments bring a lot of people to the region, and it helps develop local sport as well. So it's great to have all of them here. And I'm glad to see you have a farm team now, Bill. That's great. What's next for your organizations? I'll give each of you a chance to answer, and then we'll open up the floor for questions. So prepare yourselves, audience. Steve, yeah.
Next, we play golf on Friday. I try not to look too far down the road. I think for our organization, what we're working at, from a community part, I mean, most people, I know it's referenced here, we're publicly owned. We're not publicly owned, we're a nonprofit corporation. Our season ticket holders are our members, so Kim's in the room, so I make it clear the city of Kitchener does not own us as those tickets. They're just, what's that ball and chain thing on my leg? So we each have a role, right, Kim? But really, in all seriousness, our next position where we're looking, people are familiar. 2012, we did about a $12 million expansion to the auditorium with the promise to the community that we would cover that total cost plus any interest in that. The first 5 years were the riskiest part of our investment. We're now in year 6, so we made it through the 5 according to plan. And now the second phase is starting to kick in. And what I mean by the second phase is we're actually starting to be generating more cash than we have to put out. So what does that do for the community and the organization? I think the next step is you're going to see something come to light in the next year or so. I don't know the name, but very similar to Jay's Care, but they have like a separate foundation from the Rangers. And not to go out into the community to raise money, but instead for the Rangers to take that money where we were paying off our mortgage and turning it back into the foundation. So that we would be the sole funder. So what I'm saying is we're going to separate, I believe, the hockey club and the community support into two organizations. So that's really for the community. The idea is that we believe all things being equal, that we have the ability to, any surpluses we get, good years, bad years, we can increase our position in the community to help support different things. So that's a pretty unique organization in our league. There's only 2 of us, Peterborough and us, that are actually built this way. But that'll be the next step in our organization.
That's great. Leon?
Now, in the short term, we're going to make the playoffs this year. We have 3 games left. Saturday night is our last regular season home game before the playoffs. There's 5 teams in our division. None of them are guaranteed a playoff spot. It's that tight. So every game from here on in matters, and we're going to make it. We could put out London. That's great. I know. We will put out London, sorry.
Usually one of our players gets a ball in the head the first time.
On the good side, they might not even make the playoffs. Long term, we just want to make the season or the team more sustainable and it carries itself. We want to be as big as the Rangers. Wouldn't it be awesome if we could fill the odd with 2 teams to the maximum capacity? That would be exciting for us, and that's our goal, to get the name out, get the people out, realize that there is good basketball here, and fill the odd, same as the Rangers, and be as successful as they are.
So that's a challenge to everybody here. Make sure you tell everyone you know about the Titans, Rangers, and the Panthers, and get people out to those games.
My business card is on the table for any group sales for this.
Was it me? Okay. Wasn't sure. So our immediate goals, well, are first and foremost, the best marketing plan we have is to put a good team on the field. That's the same for any team, and it's even more so with us because unlike, say, the Rangers, which Steve described as being an event into unto itself sometimes for people. We haven't reached that status yet. And so that's first and foremost each year. And by the way, we just secured the 4 Cuban players that are coming back this year. 3 of the 4 from last year, plus another pitcher, and we're pretty excited about that. Mike is down in Cuba right now, and could be signing everything off today. And so, and Scott and Mike and a couple of other fellows that are doing our recruitment, they have a big job, and that's all they do. And so, because that is our best marketing plan. And so, but in the immediate future is to also outside the fence, is to increase the amount of usable ad real estate in the park. Get creative on that. We have a few ideas that we're working on right now. And then a little bit longer term, we've already started some discussions with the city. We simply have to rebuild the park outside the fence. The playing field and everything is fine, but Kim, just cover your ears. The park is, as we discovered again this year in the playoffs, where we're having upwards of 1,000 or more people in the park. The seating is 1,200. It is woefully inadequate. And it's not, we don't need a bigger park, we need a better park. We don't want, big doesn't equal better. Better for our fans. Fans, even at our level, deserve and expect a certain level of creature comfort. And sadly, we don't meet those expectations in any way, shape, or form. But that's the way it is, and it's nobody's fault, really. We're working now not the short term, but the near term to correct that, and we're putting a plan in place. And of course, we always continue 12 months a year to mine in the community for more sponsors. That's a 12-month-a-year job for about 4 or 5 of us year-round.
Thanks. Thank you, and thanks to all 3 of you. This has been great, but now you're going to be really subjected to some hard questions because I know I'm going to open up the floor to questions from the audience. Anybody have any questions? Oh, come on. Yes.
Speaking to facilities, and Bill, you and I have talked about.
There's a microphone coming for you.
Hi. How much, you've already spoke to facility, but how much does the facility lead to the success of the team? As a hockey parent, I know I've gone to other cities where they have fabulous sports facilities all in one place, very convenient. How can we compete against that? What would be your vision for the future?
Who's first?
Did you want to go to anyone specific? Or?
I know you all share one facility, but in the future, what would you see as your ideal facility? What would be the goal?
Multiplex in Cambridge, I think.
Wow, that hurt. We're Kim over here, there's tears rolling down. Sharon, for us, we've, and I'll use the word mined again, we've mined or wrung just about everything we can wring out of Jack Couch Park in terms of creature comfort and sponsor comfort or giving back to our sponsors. And the piece we're missing now is just a better facility. I mean, people like to go, it doesn't matter whether, Neil Aitchison yesterday talked to our Rotary Club about the history of Drayton Theatre, and a lot of it hinged around John sitting here, a lot of it hinged, John, around the facilities and how improving the facilities that they went into one by one, how it increased attendance because people, it was a nice place to go. And the auditorium is a fabulous facility. It's great. So for us, though, that's our key.
From the hockey side, I would support what Bill said. The auditorium is, it's still one of the elite facilities in our entire league, if not all Canadian hockey. I understand it's not the newest not the shiniest and all those sort of things. If I was looking down the road, I touch on the similar things. It's bigger isn't necessarily better. If I was given the choice, and I suspect I won't be, but it would be not just to build some cookie cutter thing that everybody has. The odd is really, if people remember, is almost like a minimum or smaller Maple Leaf Gardens, same sort of layout. I think what they've done in Major League Baseball, building these unique parks, that type of thing, brings the fan experience. So if we have any say in it, it's vital to recruiting. Like all the renovations we've done that the fans don't see, that deals with the players, from lounges to all that, dressing room facilities. Those things are important. And I think at the other end would be, we have outstanding parking and access, and people still complain there isn't enough. All you have to do is drive to another city and realize that we have the most in the league. So location will be the next item to make it easy for. Our biggest support is Kitchener-Waterloo. That's the reality. It's probably about 82-84% of our fan base, and the townships are about another significant. Cambridge is actually less than 4%. Okay, they tend to go to golf. So location where it's easy for our fans to attend, and that's a tough thing for the city of Kitchener, given that we're sort of forcing them to push it near a boundary that's with another city. But we don't get into amalgamation talks and such here, but you're asking one city to fund something entirely where actually the whole region benefits from. So not to give a plug to the city, but that puts constraints. So, and then size-wise, I know people say bigger is better and all this, but I would caution, when we did our renovation, we went out to Winnipeg and met with the Jets owners, and out of all the advice they gave us on before we did the expansion was the one that stuck home the best was your last seat is your most expensive. Meaning it's literally millions of dollars to put those last 1,000 seats in because you need new concourses, and those are the ones that you rarely sell. Okay, so I'd rather be a little too small than too big.
Good comment. Leon?
We would like to see a facility where we don't have to rent ice to play hockey or play basketball. A facility where we share with minor basketball, somewhere on the LRT for the region, and multiple courts for everyone to play, and more or less a community center or a community event center. That's what we would like to see.
Yeah, that would be great. Other question over here.
Thanks. Is it on?
There we go. Katie Mauser from University of Waterloo. Thanks for your panel. I'm curious to hear your perspective on any trends towards engaging women as fans and potentially also our multicultural, more diverse community, and if you've seen anything happening in your own fan base and what you see ahead.
That's a great question.
For the Rangers, we've seen a huge transformation, and obviously female hockey, or I don't know if I get the terminology right, girls hockey, female hockey, whatever, non-boys hockey. When I played, my sister got dragged to the rink to watch me play. I've gone and seen daughters of friends of mine play hockey, so that's the transformation. And if you look at a picture of the odd and go back, and I don't know how far, and I don't mean all the way back where you have the men in suits and stuff like that, but even going back to the 80s, if you looked at the population, it was largely male. If you look at it now, it's not. So obviously that's important to us. Our community is changing, the demographics, we know that. Lots of people are coming here that hockey's not their first sport, if their sport at all. So I think you're right, we have to introduce it to, as a sport to watch, you don't necessarily have to play, right? But we've seen the transformation, huge, where I'm not sure if it's equal or this or that, but in my section, there's a lot more opinionated women than men on how we're playing, and that might be just where I'm sitting, right? Most of them is Kevin's wife who's here today. No, you're right, and across the league they're seeing that. But I think in our community, I'm wondering if the demographics is even changing faster. And sometimes you read things and you see You would think that. But we're also becoming a larger community too, so.
Well, you know, we have a lot of international students in Kitchener-Waterloo region, Kitchener-Waterloo and Cambridge, but they're mostly based around the universities and Conestoga College. So getting those folks out to a game has got to be a challenge. Leon, do you want to talk about that?
Basketball is a very multicultural sport. It's played everywhere in the world. Canada is one of the last countries to get a national league going. So we see people from every line of life coming to the games. But yes, we also, women is a good target. Young mothers is a target for us because their kids love to come. And I think women are enjoying it as much as men are in this. So we haven't had a lot of history here to know what really going on, but I think we have a good mixture of people coming to the games.
Don't?
I would say 50% of our fans at every game are women. A lot of couples come to the games. We have 75 to 100 kids coming to each of our games. By kids, I mean between the ages of, say, up to 10. Mostly because they have to chase balls and they bring it back to the concession and they get something for it. And I've had many mothers tell me that we're pretty cheap not to let the kid keep the ball. That's another story. So, and a little bit like Steve mentioned, a lot of the opinions we get on the team, and of course the armchair managing, which is the perfect sport to do it as baseball, is I hear from a lot of women on their way out, well, you know, thanks for coming.
Women make a rope around us, so you just.
Yep, that's true. And so we have good fan participation. And I can say personally, for a number of the sponsors that I deal with are in the companies that sponsor, so quite a few. But we don't actively go out and engage women to come. We engage everybody to come to our games. So and we get a lot of them, a lot of young mothers with their kids.
It's interesting because we from our tourism perspective, are looking at other ways to engage different audiences, and from using influencers to blog or to do social media for us is one way, but the Chinese market is a really interesting one, and even the Chinese students, we're looking at doing more on WeChat, which is a channel that they look at a lot. So maybe we can talk a little bit more about trying to do more together to get the students, the Chinese students out to games, without discounting tickets. Ian.
I thought it might be interesting just to get your take. You've got the two universities here, their athletic departments here. You talked about the minor sports. We've got our friends from KW Velocity Lacrosse, and there's lots going on, and both in minor sports you've touched on. We've got the universities, the college that are all doing things as well. Can you talk about those relationships, maybe not directly, but how that sort of fits into supporting sport in the region? Because it is an important topic, and I know Minto's been working on sports tourism and bringing tournaments in here of all this. So maybe just touch on how the universities, the college, and that minor sports sort of fits into how you deal with your day-to-day activities.
For us, it's interesting. I would argue historically that from a marketing, the student population has been almost extinct from our marketing efforts. And part of that might go back to the time when, my perception when I was there is students tend to stay in their sort of area. There's no walls, but we almost have magical walls around a certain area, and they don't seem to go beyond. We have, interestingly enough, last year I sat on a judge on a business case thing that the students presented, and they were talking about getting the universities more involved in coming to our games, and we took a few points from that. We now have groups that come out of the universities. Okay, so obviously transportation is an issue for students and stuff like that, so we do that. But where we've seen more involvement is really on two other ends. One is sending our graduating players to the universities, and that's a challenge for local universities. That's a challenge for Ontario universities to keep our players because of the way scholarships are. when they go to Atlantic Canada and someone basically gives you a free way to get to school. And Ontario doesn't do that, so that's a challenge. The other side, and this is, we've worked with both universities where they have that game now at the Odd, or we've helped them there. And then more specifically on the medical side, specifically the University of Waterloo, going back to concussion testing, where we started baseline years ago with some of their people, and now there's some preliminary talks with the possibility of expanding some of their facilities over time, and is there a way that they could become a resource or we could become a customer, maybe more like but what it can do is provide top-notch services to our players from an athlete point of view. So we're lucky to have that so close.
Yeah.
We are reaching out to the universities to get the students to come out to the games. We also have our coach, Cavell, working with the university basketball teams, which is exciting. There's some great talent going on at the universities these days, and most of our players come out of the US, the NCAA, but there's a lot of good Canadians playing in universities here that are shining in the league, and that's more what we have to see. And right now we have to have 5 Canadians on our team. Eventually I would like to see that go up to 6, at least half the team be Canadian, and it gives these kids opportunities, and I think it's a bright future for universities in Canada here producing good talent.
I think that was one of the most exciting things about your league, is having Canadian players, a quota of Canadian players on the team to give opportunities to Canadian kids. That's great. Bill?
So unlike the Rangers, players that finish their career might go on to university on scholarship locally or anywhere else. The universities both have baseball programs. Scott Valentine, who's our head of recruiting, is the head coach and general manager of the Laurier team. And so they are actually a farm system for our junior squads. Our junior team is basically a college level. And so every year we pick up a handful of players that come out of either of the universities. And on the Senior Panthers, we have now, this year, we're going to have probably 2 or 3 players who played for either Waterloo or Laurier at some point before they graduated. And so it's a resource for us, and we do whatever we can, we support those programs, and because they are self-funded, I believe, and so we like to, whenever they run a fundraising program, we like to pitch in and see if we can help out, because we have those connections. So as far as marketing to the universities for fans, unless they find us through social media, we're not overtly out there marketing directly to the universities, probably for reasons not unlike Steve said. We're a long way from that island up in Waterloo, and obviously we play during the summer, and the university's lowest enrollment period is from May till Labor Day, and that's when we play. So.